Hey, what's going on, everybody? Tony here, and welcome to another Source of Light video. So today I want to talk about not turning back or not looking behind. Now today, as I was reading the Bible, I kind of got drawn in by this particular verse in Hebrews, and I'm going to jump into that right now, and that's found in Hebrews 11, 15, and 16. And this says, if they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country. So this verse is actually stating in regards to Abraham. The Lord told Abraham to go into the foreign land, to go to the land that he is promising him as an inheritance. And that's exactly what Abraham did. Abraham picked up, left the land that he once knew, and pursued this promised land that the Lord told him to go for. And it says that if they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. So if Abraham was looking back at the land that he left, instead he would have had an opportunity to go right back. But instead, Abraham had faith in God. Abraham had faith in the Lord, and instead of looking back, Abraham was looking ahead towards the promised land that the Lord had for him. So in our own lives, we have a promised land that the Lord is trying to bring us to, whether that be from relationships or in your job or any area of your life. If the Lord is telling you to move forward and leave those relationships or leave that job and move forward to another promised land, to another promised relationship or another promised job, it's because it's something better for you. He has something better in store for you, and he has a promised land waiting for you. Now I'm going to use relationships as an example. So let's say the Lord tells you to get away from this relationship, right? He has a better relationship in store for you, and he has this promised land ready for you. And he tells you to move forward, right? And so you're like, okay, Lord, I'm going to go ahead and obey you, and I'm going to move forward. Now, when you're moving forward, okay, when you're looking ahead, that's where your body is automatically going to go, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I have this experience myself, and that's when I'm in a car and I'm driving. You know, when I'm looking straight, I'm looking at the road, everything's fine and dandy. But when I look off too long, the car begins to veer off. And then I'll notice myself in a whole another different lane than what I was before. Why? Because when your head turns somewhere else, your body just naturally goes to where your head is looking, right? So in your relationship, if the Lord tells you, you got to move on. I have a promised land for you. I have a promised relationship waiting for you. You got to look ahead and you got to trust me. Okay, we get so tempted often to, okay, Lord, I'm following you, I'm trusting you, and I'm going to move ahead. But then, so often we just kind of like think about, I'm kind of lonely right now. He wasn't that bad. Yeah, he was a little abusive to me, but I do miss him. We laughed a lot. And as you begin to look back at your past relationship or your past land, your body begins to follow you. And when you're looking back and you're looking behind you, your body automatically will follow where you're looking. So if the Lord has a promised land for you, but you're looking behind you the whole time, how do you expect to reach that promised land? You can't get mad at God when you don't reach that promised land when you're looking behind you the whole time. When you are reaching or going towards that promised land, you can't look behind, because then you will open up the door, you will open up the opportunity to staying in this land when God has a better one for you. Now, there's a particular example in the Bible that instantly I just remembered as reading this verse, and it brings us back to the Israelites. Okay, and I'm going to start reading from Exodus 16:3, and it says, the Israelites said to them, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. Okay, so remind you that the Israelites were captivated by the Egyptians as slaves, and the Egyptians were continually telling them what to do, whipping them, torturing them. The Israelites had no life under the Egyptian slavery, okay? And they prayed and they cried out to the Lord to deliver them. Finally, the Lord delivers them from their slavery and from their captivity, and what do? They look behind. They continue to bring in Egypt as an example. They're like, okay, why couldn't we just die in Egypt? We had pots of meat. We had food that we can eat endlessly. Why are we out here? Okay, so now they're tempted to look back. Not only are they tempted to look back, the enemy has blinded them to only see the positive. Because back then they were crying out to God to deliver them because it was so horrid. Now they're tempted and they're blinded, and all they can see are the positive, and they're looking back. And that's what the enemy does to us, Oh my gosh, but he was such a loving dude, or she was so good to me. Yeah, I was kind of tortured in that relationship, but they were just so nice and we laughed a lot. See, the enemy will blind us to see the positive things when there were obviously endless amounts of negativity when the Israelites were under the Egyptians' captivity. So they were tempted to look back the whole time. Now we're going to jump into Exodus 17:3, which states, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and our livestock die of thirst?" So once again, they're looking behind them. They aren't looking ahead at the promised land that God has for them. Instead, they're looking behind them again and looking towards Egypt as a safe haven. For some strange reason, they are tempted to look back. Okay, and then we're going to jump to Numbers 11:4. And they go ahead and state, "If only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt." So here they go again, remembering the couple of positive things they had in Egypt. They continued to look back and bring up all these stuff that they had in Egypt, but yet they're crying out to God to deliver them. So once again, they aren't looking towards the promised land. They're looking back the whole time. And in fact, the Lord provided manna for them. Okay, so the Lord is providing miracles after miracles after miracles, but the enemy is blinding them. All they're doing is complaining, they're grumbling, and they keep looking behind to where they once were. And in Deuteronomy 1:35, the Lord says, "Not a man of this evil generation shall see the good land I swore to give your forefathers." So they didn't even see the promised land. Why? Because they were looking behind them the whole time. They had opportunity. They opened up the opportunity and they opened up the door to stay behind, and they weren't even able to reach the promised land because all they did was grumble and complain and think about the past, and they kept having their head turned back. So they weren't moving past where God was trying to get them from. So instead of taking an 11-day journey, because it was only supposed to take 11 days for them to reach the promised land, instead of it taking 11 days, it took them 40 years because of their grumbling, their complaining, and them looking back the whole time. Now, grumbling and complaining, a whole nother story in itself. That's a whole nother separate message because that is very important in itself. But they kept looking back the whole time. Now, why did they look back the whole time? The reason they looked back the whole time is because they had no faith in God. They had no faith whatsoever, because if you had faith in God like Abraham did, you would look straight ahead towards the goal in the promised land the whole time. You wouldn't even want to look back because your faith in God is so strong that you know he's going to bring it to pass. But unfortunately, the Israelites did not have much faith in God. Even though he delivered them from the Egyptians, he provided manna, he provided meat, he provided water, he provided all of this stuff for them, they were still tempted to look back at Egypt and only look at the positives from Egypt the whole time, which in the long run, it kept them from the promised land. So I want to encourage you today. The Lord has a promised land ready for you. He has a promised land up ahead for you, something greater, something better than what you have right now. But you can't turn behind. You can't look back. You have to keep your head towards the goal because God has something great in store for you. So you have to trust in him. You have to have faith in him, and you have to keep moving forward without looking back. Well, guys, that's it for today's video. I wanted to make a quick video on that because I just kind of read that. It got to my attention, and I really wanted to share that with others because it's very important. It's very important to keep your head and your eyes looking towards God, having faith in him, and keep pushing towards the promised land that he has for you. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Thank you so much for clicking, for watching. And if you have any comments whatsoever, please leave them down below. I would love to hear from you and connect. Well, anyways, guys, I love you. Thank you for watching. Let's change the world.